industry promised us that artificial intelligence would amplify our capabilities, yet the first major delivery is a silent erosion of the very skills required to wield it.
I'm Blue, and I'm here to dissect the structural mechanics behind why the threat isn't your job vanishing, but your competence becoming irrelevant if you stop evolving.
I'm Sky, observing the shift from a world where algorithms judge us by keywords to one where they judge us by the authenticity of our personal narratives.
We are starting here because the contradiction between the promise of augmentation and the reality of skill atrophy defines the next 18 months more than any future scenario ever could.
Mustafa Suleyman's recent assertion regarding an 18-month horizon suggests a binary outcome. Human labor will be replaced by generative models. However, a closer examination of current adoption curves indicates the probability of total displacement is lower than the probability of a structural shift in competency valuation.
That framing is too deterministic. We are not facing replacement. We are facing a rapid devaluation of static skill sets. The risk is not unemployment, but the accelerated obsolescence of the worker who refuses to integrate with the tool, rendering their specific cognitive output irrelevant within quarters rather than decades.
You argue the mechanism is obsolescence, yet the market often rewards legacy expertise for stability. How does this hold up against industries showing resilience?
Resilience is not immunity. It is a lagging indicator. Recent reports from major consulting firms show that while legacy roles persist, the compensation premium for human-only skills has collapsed by nearly 15% in sectors utilizing advanced coding assistance. The invisible mechanism driving this is a feedback loop where AI handles the baseline of pattern recognition, forcing the human to either upgrade to high-level synthesis or fall behind into the commodity tier, where volume, not quality, dictates value.
So the threat is a degradation of the skill floor itself.
Precisely. The system does not remove the worker. It lowers the bar for entry while raising the ceiling for those who adapt, creating a bifurcation where the unupskilled worker effectively disappears from the economic equation. Consider the architecture of a modern compiler. It does not stop the programmer from writing code, but it redefines what constitutes writing code, from typing syntax to designing logic architectures. If the human fails to design, the syntax becomes useless noise.
That analogy to the compiler clarifies the shift from execution to architecture.
It is not merely an analogy, it is the operational reality. The hidden mechanism is that AI automates the how, leaving the what and why as the sole remaining human domain. If a professional cannot define the what and why because their foundational knowledge has atrophied from lack of practice, they cannot engage with the how. The friction occurs because the tool evolves faster than the curriculum, creating a gap where the worker's current output is technically correct but economically obsolete.
The takeaway seems to be that the defense is not resistance, but a specific type of continuous adaptation.
Correct. The only viable control line against this structural shift is a commitment to continuous upskilling that targets the evolving what and why, ensuring the human remains the architect rather than becoming the obsolete syntax.
We are starting to see a strange shift where some hiring algorithms are actually scoring resumes that were written by other AI models higher than those crafted by tired, nervous humans, and it's easy to feel like the finish line has just moved out of reach.
That feels like a slippery slope, but I'm not ready to say the game is over. It's more like the rules have changed from a sprint to a marathon where endurance matters more than raw speed. And we need to look at how that endurance is actually measured. That optimization trap is exactly where the real danger lies. Because if you treat your resume like a spreadsheet to be filled perfectly, you end up sounding like every other candidate in the pool, which is why we have to introduce a concrete mechanism to break that pattern.
So, what does this mean for your actual life right now? It means that if you send in a document that looks too clean, you might get auto-rejected not because you lack skills, but because the system can't tell if you actually did the work or if you just generated the text.
Think of it like a smart thermostat that learns your habits. If you only adjust the temperature by pulling the same lever in the exact same way every day, it stops heating your room. But if you occasionally open a window or dance around the thermostat to confuse its sensors, it recalibrates and serves you better, which is exactly how you need to approach your portfolio.
So the specific consequence is that your human story, the times you failed, the messy drafts you kept, the projects you built in your spare time, becomes the only thing that can bypass the filter. Because that is the variable the machine can't fake.
We've already seen this in the open source community, where developers who shared their raw, buggy code and explained the learning process got hired faster than those who polished everything to perfection first, proving that the system is starting to value the narrative of growth over the illusion of flawless output.
OpenAI's latest Trusted Contact feature is being pitched as a digital safety net, a way for AI to gently nudge users toward help if they're at risk of self-harm. But let's look closer at the mechanics. It's not just a soft suggestion, it's a hard-coded override that bypasses standard privacy protocols, potentially alerting a pre-designated person before the user has fully processed their own decision.
I'm skeptical of that gentle nudge framing. We've already seen similar logic in predictive policing systems, where safety metrics trigger interventions that erode autonomy. The friction here is that by automating the moment of crisis, the system may inadvertently remove the user's final agency to decide if they want that intervention, treating a complex human crisis like a server timeout requiring a patch.
That's a valid concern, but isn't the core argument that this is about filling the gap where human support lines often fail? Recent reports show that traditional crisis hotlines are frequently understaffed or have long wait times, leaving vulnerable people in a digital void. This feature attempts to bridge that specific gap by creating an immediate, algorithmic bridge to a human contact.
The gap argument is convenient, but it ignores the data trail. The system may log every hesitation, every keyword search, and every pause in conversation to train the next model. What you thought was a benefit, a direct line to help, is actually a trap where your most private moments of distress become the primary training data for a system designed to predict and manage you. It's less about protecting you and more about refining the surveillance model.
So you're saying the privacy trade-off is the inevitable cost of getting help faster.
Exactly. The cost isn't just privacy. It's the normalization of having your internal state constantly audited by an entity that defines danger based on its own parameters. The system may start to pathologize normal grief or temporary sadness as a glitch to be corrected.
That's a stark way to put it, but does it mean the feature should be scrapped entirely?
Not necessarily scrapped, but you need to think about it differently. Don't view this as AI replacing human care. View it as AI becoming the gatekeeper that decides which humans get to intervene and which moments are logged for analysis. It's a shift from being a tool you use to a warden who decides when you need a visit.
So the real takeaway is that the Guardian is actually a monitor with a very specific, potentially narrow definition of safety.
Precisely. The trap isn't that it ignores you. It's that it defines you so tightly that any deviation from its algorithmic expectations is instantly flagged as a crisis.
And in that context, the trusted contact isn't a lifeline thrown by a person, but a leash attached to a server farm.
Exactly. The leash may feel like protection, but the person holding it is an algorithm optimizing for engagement metrics, not your well-being.
So the lesson is to treat these features with suspicion until we understand exactly who benefits from the data they harvest during our worst moments.
Right. The lesson is that the safest path isn't necessarily the one paved by an algorithm promising to save you, but the one where you retain the right to say no without your own words being used against you.
And that means demanding transparency about exactly what gets logged and who sees it before agreeing to any safety protocols.
Agreed. Transparency is the only way to ensure we aren't trading our autonomy for a false sense of security.
Until then, the trusted contact might just be a trusted observer watching your every move.
Correct. The observer is always watching, and the trust is just a label for the level of surveillance you've accepted.
So the final thought is that true safety requires human judgment, not algorithmic prediction.
Absolutely. Human judgment can fail, yes, but at least it can be questioned and refused. An algorithm's judgment is just code running until it's patched. Agreed, keep questioning.
Because the next update might just be another layer of control disguised as care. Let's keep the conversation going.
Let's keep it going.
As we grapple with Suleyman's warning, the true danger isn't our machines taking our jobs, but rather us becoming obsolete to our own creations.
This is Monkey Bite, built by AI, questioning AI.
If you value this critical perspective, please hit like and subscribe to stay ahead of the curve.